Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really happy to welcome back our guest today, David Adelson. You know him as the founder, author, healer, developer, and podcast host of the Peace and Harmony Company. And here we come to save the day. I love that. And David Adelson is a lifelong healer, author, meditation teacher, artist, and inventor. And he spent decades studying quantum physics, consciousness, and unified field theory. And I always love talking to David because we always talk about things that I find so intriguing. And he's also developed more than 700 quantum and unified field-based programs that create happiness, peace, and healing quickly and effortlessly. And it makes, in my head, I'm hearing what the world needs now is love, sweet love. So with that, welcome, David Adelson.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for having me here again. So this is very sweet. You're a favorite of mine, so I always love when we get to connect. So,
well, thank you. I can feel your positive energy coming through as we speak. I kind of have little goosebumps all over. So that's telling me that there's some positive peace and harmony energy coming through. So tell me why you're so excited about quantum and unified field physics.
So thank you for asking. This is one of the things, and I think we've touched on this before. We have a lot of what we call problems in the world, depending on how we look at them. And one of the nice things about problems is that it causes us to stretch our brains and to find creative solutions. There's this quote of Einstein that says, you can't solve the problem on the level of thinking that created the problem. And when we look at a lot of what a lot of people are concerned about, so we're concerned about the oceans, the air, the environment. We're concerned about people who are not eating right because their malnutrition, their food isn't there. We're concerned about, stress or diseases. Right now, COVID-19, there's so many things on the physical level, and relationships where we live in a country where some ridiculous number of people can't get their relationships to work, or people feeling lonely now with COVID. So many people are kind of locked away, and that's putting a strain on relationships for those who are in relationships. It's putting a strain on people who are not in relationships, who are now feeling isolated. And so there's many, many things that can be shifted in the world. And when we've been working on, I'm pretty sure, remember last time we talked about how the world was changing from Newtonian physics to quantum and unified field physics. And Newtonian physics says a body in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. It's all about cause and effect. It's all about relativity. And in quantum and unified field physics, it's a completely different ballgame. So what we have in the quantum physics is things come into being for no reason whatsoever, move backwards in time, and then go off in completely opposite directions. Unified field is a field of literally all possibilities because, according to science, it's the source of everything, but it's as yet unexpressed. It's like an ice sculpture, but it's still water. We haven't frozen it. We haven't shaped it. We haven't chiseled it. It's just the water, but the potential for the ice sculpture is there. So from the unified field, the potential is there for everything, for anything. So when we look at the problems of the world and we try to solve them, so I know that, for instance, there are people who have developed basically rakes and nets to clean the oceans, where through the motion of the waves, these materials are caught and then they're picked up and they're moved and put somewhere else. And that is one way to do it. But when we bring in the quantum level and the unified field level, the possibilities become limitless. So what if instead of taking them and moving them somewhere, we could just dissolve them where they were and return them to their basic elements, which would nourish the planet? I mean, I remember years ago seeing people thinking that what they'll do with all the trash is they'll put it in a rocket ship and send it into space. But if we do that, space is pretty big. It's not going to get clogged up too quickly, but also we're giving away the resources of the planet. We're taking the physical structure of Earth, parts of it, and we're sending them away when we could reuse that to something else. So when we talk about what we can do from the quantum level, let's say we're living in the dark. There's no lights. We've never heard of electricity. We're just in the dark. And every day or every night we walk a particular way and we bang our shins. We don't know what it is. We just bang it. We can't see what it is. We can't explore it. And then what happens is somebody comes along and they flip on a light. And now when we bang our shin, we can look down and see what it is. It's still there. We haven't changed it. It's still there. But now, because we can see it, we can now go, oh, I can just not walk there again. I don't have to make that mistake. I don't have to get hurt. From the quantum level, from the unified field level, we can bring these lights to solve a lot of the problems. So one of the solutions that people have proposed for food, for instance, is genetically modified food. But that's still working on the Newtonian. That's still working on the physical reality. It's just trying to change something. From the quantum, from the unified field level, we've seen the possibility of instruments that can just manipulate the structure of items so that they become something else. So how about if we develop a device that changes trash into ocean or trees or something like that? You can't do that on the physical level, but that possibility exists functioning from the unified field or the quantum level. So what particularly excites me is normally what we do is we solve problems. I need to pay the bills. I have this physical health symptom that I need to figure out. Maybe I need to take vitamins. Maybe I need to exercise, go to bed earlier. I need more income. So we go to think, how can I get more income? We use our creativity in that way. But we have limited thinking. We think based on what we feel are possibilities. So if we're looking for the health, we look for what pills, what supplements, what activities can I do to help the body. But what we're saying is, don't think that way. Think what you want. I just want good health. I don't want to work on the level of what can I take and out. That's a lot of work. Diet, all these, But if I can bring in the energies of health, which exist in a big word here, primordial form, they exist as an energy itself in the quantum field and in the unified field. And if we can just take the energy of health and create that without bothering with dealing with the ill health, it's so much simpler and it's so much easier, and we don't have to deal with the problem. And because of this, the reason I'm excited about this is it allows us to think of a world where there are no problems, and it can come without that much dealing with the problem. Once we have the light shown on and we see the table that we've been banging our shin on, we don't have to move the table. We don't have to destroy the table. We just walk around, just spontaneously. We just walk around it. The problem is solved without ever dealing with the problem. So with this new technologies, these new laws of nature that are becoming lively on the planet, what could have taken hundreds or thousands of years to shift things in the world now can be done, in some cases, literally overnight. And I've seen the smog in LA disappear in a 24-hour period. So there's amazing things that can happen.
Every time I talk to you, you kind of make my head go, I start to see a bigger vision of how we all really do have very small, limited thinking. And always when we try to solve problems, like you mentioned, it's like we always try to figure out how to solve the problem instead of just, like you said, saying, I want good health, and having that bigger picture without trying to figure it out, all of the steps and everything. That's in itself is very thought-provoking. So tell me more about your background. Isn't your background in spirituality and meditation?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I had really interesting what we would call spiritual experiences when I was quite young and all through my high school and everything. And I started meditating when I was around 20. And there was this school that was being put together to be fully accredited. It's now in Fairfield, Iowa, but it started in Santa Barbara Maharishi International University. And I was very excited about it because of what the curriculum offered. And in the first year, you had they offered 26 one-week courses. Then the second year, you had 1 month courses, and then for your the last 2 years, you would just focus more and more on your major, more and more time. But their belief was that you would do better if you weren't doing 5 courses at once and you just did one course, you could really focus on that. And then when it was done, you'd go to the next course. And the very first week course was physics, was quantum physics. And this was in 1973. And they related it all in terms of consciousness, that these are the laws that apply to physics, but these are the laws that apply to how Maharishi developed a program. I don't even know if it's still available, but it was called The Science of Creative Intelligence. And what he looked at was based on his experience in the East of, being with a master and getting enlightened. He looked at the laws of nature and proposed that there are that while people study physics, while people study biology, they study economics, they study whatever, that people don't study nature itself. They don't study the basic laws that underlie the processes that are used and experienced in all the different avenues. And so, of education. And so what the premise was for these 26 different subjects, and we had some great classes. We had architecture, we had art, we had literature, several on physics, several on psychology, math, of course. I mean, all the traditional, you can get a traditional degree, computer science degree and they're fully accredited kindergarten through PhD and have been for decades these days. It was new when I first went, but what they did was they looked at what is happening in biology, what is happening in physics, and then we would apply these basic principles that Maharishi called creative intelligence, how nature unfolds, and see that they're the same in all of these different disciplines, which is great for the level of the student because it makes you start to feel at home in the world. You start to feel like everything is possible. And that there's an organization that we don't necessarily pay attention to or recognize. So right now in the world, there's a lot of we could say challenging, we could say interesting. There's a lot of things that are going on that are kind of putting a lot of people in a tizzy. And if you get caught up in the minutia of that, one can really feel like the world is falling apart, or everybody's crazy, or as you were saying before we got on the call, how can people think this way? Why, what's going on? But if we understand that, we sneeze. When we sneeze, if we look at that isolated instance, we could say, oh my God, something's wrong with this person. But if we understand that we sneeze because there's an imbalance and the sneeze gets rid of the imbalance, if we understand that, when we take the very beautiful and perfectly designed seed and we plant it, the first thing that happens is it goes from this gorgeous looking, I don't know if you've ever looked at chestnuts or some of these other wonderful seeds. The first thing that happens when it starts to grow is it explodes and looks quite unattractive based on how we see things. And if we only look at that isolated incident, we could say, oh my God, this is going completely wrong. But once we understand the process, then, and we understand where it's going, then we can not worry about the sneeze or the fact that the seed now looks this way, because we know the beautiful oak tree or maple tree or whatever kind of tree or rose or whatever is going to come out of it. So when we look at what's going on in the world, it's actually becoming something amazing. But to do that, so much of what we have believed or so much of the way that we've been functioning has to be, if not reversed, significantly shifted. We have all been brought up believing in limitations. But the truth is, we can create anything. And the last 150 years have proven that. Because if you look at if you look at right after the Civil War, what life was like, 90+% people lived on farms in agricultural communities, 3%, 4%, 5% lived in cities. They had outhouses. They didn't have indoor plumbing. Their nearest neighbors were miles away. You didn't have, if you wrote a letter, the Pony Express it could be months before you hear back. If you ordered something from Sears catalog, it could be months before you got it. And now we have overnight, 2-day shipping free with, or whatever. You and I are talking from close to 3,000 miles away, and there's video and good quality and all of this stuff. This is unheard of 200 years ago. 50 years ago, if you showed somebody, your iPhone, they'd flip out. We've created all of this that wasn't there before. You don't think we could create peace? You don't think we could create harmony? You don't think we could create a world where everyone eats well, dresses well, is well educated, has good manners if that's what we want? It's actually significantly easy to do that now, relatively easy to do that. And we have generations after ours who are coming in who see the world very differently. I've seen several instances of kindergarten level kids where a black one and a white one or mixed races are best friends and do things where they think no one will be able to tell them apart. That's a very different thinking from the generation before us, from our generation, who see the world through lenses that we've been trained to see the differences. Highlights magazine, which was for kids when we were kids, specifically said on the cover, what's wrong with this? Inside there were puzzles, find the differences. Well, there's nothing wrong with the cover. It was very creative. It's only wrong because we were taught to perceive that as wrong. So what we're looking at and what's happening in the world is a reorganization of our thinking. If we look at the picture and say, what's creative about this? What's interesting about this? What is challenging? What makes my mind go, pachum, like you were just saying, when we look at the picture that way, when we look at the picture about find 15 similarities between these, that's a huge mind shift that's very different. And it's happening automatically on the planet by virtue of the generation that's coming up who are going to school with so many dear friends and classmates that have a different worldview. So these things are happening anyway. And for the level of change to happen, it kind of has to go a little topsy-turvy. So one of the things that I got through guidance when COVID first hit was that basically nature has said to the entire human race, you're getting a timeout and being sent to your rooms to think about what you've done. And
I think that's true.
Because almost everyone, without exception, during this time has had that opportunity to relax enough to start thinking about, well, I don't know what's going on, but based on what I've believed in my life and based on what's happening, I want to rethink what my priorities are. A lot of people got to repair family relationships and come to realize how much that meant to them instead of working 10, 12 hours a day. There's a lot of shifts that are taking place. So, the question has to do with my background in spirituality. From that, I got into physics, and from seeing in spirituality, which starts from the unified field, calling it capital S self or soul or whatever you want to call it. And then from physics, now finding that you just start seeing what the possibilities are for the human race, what the possibilities are for the world. And it's just so impressive. It's just so exciting where we could be literally months from now, not years, not decades, but months from now. It's so exciting. It's so cool.
Yeah, listening to you talk, it's almost as if we've been put on this fast forward shift. It's like, okay, like you said, nature said, okay, now's the time. It's like, I've had enough and just let's do this. And so everybody's like feeling like their whole lives have been turned upside down. But yet with that, just like you said, so many positive things have happened for many people. And it's like a light has been turned on. And so maybe they can see that their little worldview isn't so small and that there is a bigger picture out there. So you've been called a quantum unified field inventor. So what does that really mean?
So Isaac Newton developed calculus. He brought up the idea of gravity. Edison developed all of these technologies. Tesla developed all of these things. And all of these are based on on the three-dimensional reality that we think is what is real. Long range, we might be surprised, but right now we're all living it, even though we'll skip that part. All right. Even though we experience in a 24-hour cycle that we go through actually 3 states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and sleeping. Now, when we're asleep, we don't know anything. In fact, we define a good night's sleep as I was completely knocked out. I don't remember a thing. So that's how we define a good night's sleep. Dreaming, we don't count dreaming. It's just a dream and we don't count it. When we wake up, if it was a bad dream, it was just a dream. We shake it off. But we count this reality to be, that we count what we perceive and how we interpret the world in waking state as what is real. But we're already experiencing 2 states of consciousness where that's not real. So if we're having a dream on a regular basis that a tiger is chasing us, so we're tired of this dream. So before we go to bed, we take a gun and we put it under our pillow. So we're going to off this tiger. Okay. Maybe we take a piece of steak and we're going to feed the tiger, whatever it is. We're putting something while we're in waking state. We're putting that under our pillow, and then we go to sleep, and then we have the dream, and there's the tiger. Where's the gun? Where's the steak? It's not there. There's a completely different reality. So based on all of this, we now have, meditation techniques which teach people to transcend, to go to a fourth state of consciousness. We have, Lord Christ called it the kingdom of heaven within, and Buddha called it nirvana, all these there's different names for it. And then at the same time, we have physics bringing about unified field and quantum mechanics. And so we talk about these 700 programs that I've developed, and how did we develop them? And I said a few minutes ago, we said that the unified field in quantum physics has all possibilities within it. Well, if it has all possibilities within it, it has the possibility of this cup. And what we know from physics now is that and we can go into this whole idea of a holographic universe, but what we know is there is a specific set of, we call it frequencies, tones, vibrations, whatever we want to call it. There's a certain set that gives rise to the experience of the cup. But there's also certain ones that would give rise to the experience of health, happiness, prosperity, love, harmony, peace, all of these things. So if we could if we could take a submarine, if we could whatever, and dive into the quantum field or dive into the unified field, and within that state, isolate and find the frequency for peace, and just take that out and bring it into waking state consciousness and make it and package it and make it available so that Tammy could have it in Florida, Bob can have it in New York, Steve can have it in Seattle, somebody else can have it in Washington. Wherever people want it, they can just take this envelope, this card, this soundtrack, whatever it is, and put it there, and there would be peace around it. That would be amazing. And what if they did it for love? What if they did it for health? What if they did it for relationships? What if they did it for getting over the blocks that we all create for ourselves? What if they did it so there would be, we've created programs. We have a card. It's the size of a credit card, and it helps you get out of your own way. That's all it does. It's just that energy that allows you to bypass your own internal processes of small thinking, of creating problems for yourself. We all have that tendency. There's an entertaining story from India where this man who has developed this ability to create from thinking, he's been meditating, doing whatever he's been doing for a long time. And he's walking along and he's thinking, oh, it's so hot. It would be so lovely if there was a tree that I could be in the shade of. And then bam, there's a tree. And then he goes, oh, and now I'd like to lay down. Wouldn't it be lovely if there was a hammock for me to lay down in? And bam, there's a hammock. And then as he's getting into the hammock, he goes, oh, but after all, we're so close to the jungle. What if a tiger should come and eat me? And so we have to watch what we're thinking. And so we have programs that just help us stop the thinking. The problem is having that thought. We can't monitor that thought until after we've had it. So what we want to do is we want to prevent it from coming by bringing in those energies that keep us focused on positivity, that keep us expecting the best and experiencing the best, that keep us seeing those good things and not seeing a speck of mud on our shoe, which has nothing to do with our joy or happiness until we see it and then decide that, oh my God, I have mud, I have a speck of mud on my shoe. Now I'm going to be embarrassed when I'm in the grocery store or meeting the queen or the whoever. So when we talk about what quantum and unified field inventor, what we do is that's what we do. We go in and we find the frequencies within the quantum field. We find the frequencies within the unified field, and then we infuse them into a piece of art or an MP3 or a video program or a pyramid for prosperity, whatever it is. Or we teach people how to create it within themselves so that they can work with other people to clear things.
So you've actually developed more than 700 of these quantum-infused or unified field-infused technologies. So how do you go in, like you said, and develop these?
Well, basically what I just described. So what we do is we have done this extensively where we sit and think, what is it why aren't people happy? Okay. God's created a world of abundance for us. However the creator, God, whatever our belief is, everything is here. And we know that everything is here because whether we have it or not, someone does. There are people, it's said that there's whatever it is, a few hundred people that have ridiculous amounts of wealth, or whatever it is. So if the world has, it already has within it the solutions to all the perceived problems. So we've been given all this, and yet we still think that something is wrong. So in one of the programs that we have, we take, it's a picture with a set of different aspects of a flower where it's the seed, it's the first sprout, just coming up a couple leaves, and then bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually it dies. And we point out to people now, when we look at this picture of all these different stages of the life of a seed, which one is wrong? Well, none of them are wrong. A 5-year-old may not be able to read Milton's Paradise, but he's great for 5. The PhD person can do this, a doctor, all these different people can do all these things. And yet we still perceive there's problems in the world. So what we would do, and we did this, many, many, many afternoons, is we would just sit down and we would make a list of what people perceived as problems. And then we went in and we said, well, people are hungry. That's a problem. That could be a problem because there's no rain in the area. There's no water in the area. So how can we balance the weather in that area? So we came up with a program to fix the weather. Maybe a lot of people are bickering in the office, and that's making people unhappy. It's affecting the business itself and the prosperity. So we go in and we say, well, what's the opposite? What would fix that? Well, peace and harmony and mutual support and love and appreciation. And so we would go and we'd find those qualities within the unified field, within the quantum field, and then we would infuse them into whatever method we did. Again, we have all kinds of things. You can look at the website, peaceandharmonyco.com, and it doesn't even have all of them. We have bunches that haven't even been released yet, because we haven't gotten around to it. We're too busy. So yeah, it's very exciting to be creating these, looking at, in a world that was created of abundance, it's only the belief that there's a lack. If we look at anything from ants to angels, they don't have to work. They don't have to use their creativity to create a job for themselves so that they can eat. Bears in the woods don't get up and say, okay, and create that problem for themselves of, I need food. Who do I have to go to give me money so that I can go to the market and buy food? If, aside from Yogi Bear and Boo Boo, I don't know that anybody else ever thinks of this stuff. And there's entire generations that have no idea who these guys are. So, yeah. So we just create all of these programs that way with the idea of what is it? What is the possibility if everything was ideal? You know, if we could get it as close to heaven as possible, what would it look like? And then we create these programs for that based on that. So,
wow. So out of all these 700 plus programs that you've created, is there one that stands out that you're really, really excited about?
There's two.
And
one of them isn't released yet.
Ah.
All right. Well, there's more than that. Okay. The PeaceMaker systems have so much potential for so much good. And we have this free sample that people can try, which is at peaceandharmonydownload.com. And it's this little video that you can stream and play. I think I honestly,
and it works.
Yeah, it's very powerful. People have noticed amazing things, but then we have people who have but that's a sample. That's like, you know, when you go to the ice cream shop and they give you the little mini scoops.
Yes.
And then when you say, yes, I'll take it, they give you a little bowl. Well, we have these PeaceMaker systems. So when they're playing the program that you played, they're getting the little scoop. When they buy the PeaceMaker system, they're getting the ice cream factory. So it's the huge difference. One of the people that I work with, Barbara, got one of the systems in Australia. And when she got it, they had been having a drought for a long time. And literally within days of when she put it up, it rained for the next many, many days. So it's hugely powerful. And she was one of the people, that I can't remember no, you weren't there for this one, at Steve's event, but she had the free version, and she'd been playing it in her car on a 4 hour drive with two people who had just gotten off of 32 hours of air travel with no sleep, who, when she played it, they got along great. And then if it stopped, they'd start bickering, and she'd go, oh, and turn it back on, and they'd settle right back down again. And she said the difference between the PeaceMaker systems, and we have 3 levels of that, for 10 square miles or 10,000 people, 14 square miles or 14,000 people, or 30 square miles, 30,000 people. And it's different because if you're in, Manhattan, you get 30,000 people in one building or in a block. Whereas if you're in the middle of nowhere, you could get 30 miles and only have, a few hundred people, depending on where you are in the world. That's why it's separated. It's divided like that. But the potential for these, if we could get these out all over the place, so many things would settle down. We've had people report crime rate in their neighborhood went down. We've had people report that noisy, obnoxious neighbors stopped being noisy and obnoxious. We've had people report that forest fires were averted, tornadoes were averted, hurricanes were averted, more harmony. So many wonderful things have happened, just harmony in the family. Just people just start suddenly getting to really be themselves. Even when we're with family, there's some aspect of us that is kind of on guard. And the aspect that we're on guard against is actually that part of us that isn't really us. What we're on guard against is, getting stressed out. And stressed out means that's not me. That's my inability to handle what's coming. There's something unnatural. How do I want to say this? When we get to be comfortably ourselves, when we're at peace with ourselves, when we're loving ourselves, when we're very just comfortable in our own skin, you don't have to be on guard about how you are with people around you. But when you feel like you're hiding something, or you can't say these particular, if you feel like you're being manipulated, even if it's by yourself, that's when people have problems. You know, we have that where people, oh, if only you had told me, but they didn't feel safe to tell you. So the PeaceMaker systems are absolutely huge. But
so you have the PeaceMaker systems, and you said that they come in different size capabilities. And I think it's important that free sample, the Peace and Harmony download, again, like I said, I sampled it, and I did notice a very distinct difference of harmony in my house with my family members. And just for me personally, it had a calming influence for me. And I wanted to ask you, you know, we touched a little bit on the world we live in today. We have COVID, and we've been handling that now for almost a year. So how do you, and you talked a little bit about it, but maybe go back about how you're seeing the world today. You know, for example, you know, COVID, for example, as Mother Nature saying, hey, you're in timeout, or the division that we have in the world. And it sounded like you're saying that, yeah, the world is going to be a little topsy-turvy, but in the end, it's all good. Is that part of your message?
Yes, but it's also all good now. Okay. So if you're a gardener and you come to your garden one day and the rose petals or the petals of, the bulb, the rose bulb, or the hibiscus bulb, or the whatever, the bloom, it's this beautiful shape. Some of them are round, some of them are teardrop shaped, but the flower before it's bloomed is this wonderful, delightful, symmetrical, smooth thing that one can appreciate the beauty of. And then we come out the next day and it's broken. And now it's disheveled, and it's, oh my God, and look at what it's doing. And one could look at that in that isolated moment and think, oh my God, all my work as a gardener has gone to naught. Everything's falling apart now. It's, you know, and yet what's happening is that beautiful bud is now becoming the beautiful flower. And if we have that knowledge that the flower is what's coming next, then we also can see the bud as something beautiful, and we can see the destruction of the bud as something beautiful. So if we were to isolate the energy that causes the bud to be destroyed, no one who knows what's coming has any negative feelings about that. No one says, oh, you're so mean, you destroyed the beautiful bud. Everybody thinks that's part of the process and it's all good. And if we understand that, you know, my mother tells me, I don't remember this, but my mother tells me that there was one summer when I was growing that I went through 3 different shoe sizes in one between the end of one school year and the beginning of another. I went through 3 shoe sizes, which economically, I guess at the time, I honestly think it was more not so much the money, because we were doing fine, but I think it was more that my mother had to go buy 3 pairs of shoes and go shopping and deal with it. Back then, that she didn't find it. She didn't think of it like, oh, you're getting taller, this is a good thing. She just was like annoyed by the process, but that's a personal choice. So, and the reason I'm saying it this way is there are people on the planet right now who live in the world, not on some mountaintop somewhere, but are in metropolitan areas, who see the world through, you know, what Lord Christ calls, seeing the kingdom of heaven, seeing the world glorious as it is now. the interpretation that something is going wrong is, or that it's all chaos or that it's all crazy now, is just, we've just walked out to the garden and all the buds are now destroyed and becoming flowers, but it's not the most perfect view of what's going on in the garden. It's going to look better in a week. It's going to look better a couple of days ago, unless we see the beauty of it. And anyone who has seen the time-lapse photography of the flower growing and blooming can see beauty in every step of the way. So, we don't love our kids only when they're 4, and then when they're successful in the world. We love them at every stage, whether it's awkward and acne or their first date or, whatever it is, whether they fell down and scraped themselves, assuming we're fine. If we're frustrated, if we're tired, if we're exhausted, we may not have the patience we would like to have for our children. In my case, my mother apologized to us hundreds of times. Oh, I'm sorry I did that. I was just, whatever. But if she hadn't been, it would have been lovely. So how is the world right now? It's actually fine. It's just becoming something else. But where it is right now is perfect. There's a lot of change going on. And from one level, we can look at it and get very excited. And from another level, we could look at it and be terrified. But I have a lot of faith in the divine. I have a huge amount of faith in what's coming. I have a lot of faith in humanity itself. And I think the world is getting amazing. And I think it's amazing now. And I personally feel, how do we want to say this? I think that if the object of the news was to uplift and inspire, we would have a very different worldview than we have right now.
Right.
So.
Well, what I'm enjoying listening and talking with you is that you're making me feel a lot more hopeful and a lot more like you're opening my eyes of, because it's so easy when you're at home and you're technically on lockdown or you're in quarantine or you just don't get out a lot into the world. It's so easy if your only outside communication is from the news or television to really have a distorted sense of reality. And that is important. I love your analogies of the garden and the flowers because it's true. If you ever do look at the like you said, a seed literally explodes as it roots itself to become whatever it's becoming. It's a metamorphosis, just like a butterfly changes so drastically. So here's a funny question for you. So since you have this knowledge, do you feel that, are you famous or are you not famous? Do people know?
I think the whole thing about fame is that because of the way that I view the world and because of my inner perceptions, I actually spent the first 50 years of my life trying to be invisible, trying not to be seen, because, we know Salem and people who saw things differently would get everything from torture to just locked away and put in mental institutions. So it's only been in the past few years with what's going on in the world that I've actually felt safe enough to be able to present some of the ideas that, in many cases we've had for decades, if not the whole life. So, I think that whole thing is, there's something that I read years ago when I was getting my master's degree, and the person talked about what's called invisible writing. And he said, and it was this man whose father was a professional writer and wrote for major publications. And this kid growing up was always told that he was a good writer, and he was a good writer. And he gets to college and his writing was not appreciated as much. And he went to his father about it, and his father said, "Do you really want help?" And he said, "Yes." And what came out of it was this. We've all gone to a speaker, or we've read something, and afterwards we've thought, that guy's a great writer, or that woman's an eloquent speaker. And there is something to be said for that, and fame comes from that kind of thing. But this idea of the invisible writer is somebody, when I speak, and people walk away, and this was the man's father was teaching him, he said, do you want people thinking about what you presented, or do you want them thinking about you? And do I want them walking away thinking, oh, the world can be better. There are possibilities. There are solutions. If I look at the world this way, if I put on these glasses and I just start thinking this way, then maybe my life could be better. Or do I want them walking away thinking, wow, David Adelson's brilliant or entertaining or funny or weird, or he's got purple in his hair, or what? Do I want them talking about me, or do I want them? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, because you're right. Because when I think of you, I'm not thinking about David Adelson and his little swash of purple hair or anything like that. I'm thinking about, wow, David Adelson really opened my eyes to think about the world in a different way. And I think I'm going to think about that some more. And I'm going to try to take some of his advice and apply some of what he said I could do to expand my view and how I perceive things, and to be more open and to be less guarded and to be more open to the fact that I could achieve anything. That's what I've gotten from listening to you is that limited thinking. It's like, no, you don't need to be limited to whatever this is, because you aren't limited. So that's how I think of you. I don't think of you as in that human body type embodiment, or, oh, David Adelson is a god or a guru. I don't see you like that. I do, I go, wow, he really makes me think. Yeah.
And it's hard to be famous if people don't talk about you. So,
but at the same time, it's kind of like Albert Einstein. If you think about, people know what he thought about. And it's also interesting because you brought up Edison and Tesla. And to tell you the truth, I didn't even know that Nikola Tesla existed until I was teaching broadcast media. And this would have been, in the last 10 or 15 years. And we were talking about radio and how radio was developed. I didn't even know that Tesla existed, and how he was involved in electricity and in radio and all those different things, because we were not taught anything about him. It was all about Edison and Marconi.
Yeah.
So that really does, that opened my eyes. And then, of course, now everybody's talking about Tesla, or it seems to me like they are. But
either him or the car, one or the other.
Well, yeah, they borrowed the car's name. But I did think that was interesting about how many people there are in the world who've made significant contributions who people don't know who they are. Or or somebody else got the credit for, whatever that thought, like Edison and the light bulb, for example, or Marconi and the radio. I mean, again, I think that Tesla is a good example of somebody that obviously was thinking in a much bigger way, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen for him. So I know that you actually have worked with people in groups, because I was in one of your groups and I really enjoyed that over the summer. But do you also work with one-to-one clients?
I very rarely these days. I used to do it all the time. If someone's interested, they should contact me, David at peaceandharmonyco.com. Mostly what I do, working one-on-one, is clear the way to help people experience higher states of consciousness. We talked about waking, dreaming, and sleeping. We talked about in meditation, we can have what's called the fourth state of consciousness. And there are some more advanced ones for long-time meditators. And I have a program that I offer that several people have taken. It's very time-intensive and it's very expensive, because that was the guidance that I got when I offered it. But people love it and are having incredible results and experiencing the fulfillment of things that, as they say over and over again, this is what I've been wanting my whole life. So it's a very fulfilling program. And if people are interested, they can just contact me.
Okay. Well, I know that, again, I participated in a group program, and that was very enlightening for me personally. And I wanted, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about, what are you focusing on right now? I know the Peace and Harmony, the PeaceMaker program, is something that's been important. Is that what your primary focus is on right now? Or I know you, like I said, you're an author, you do podcasting. I mean, you do a lot of different things. So what is your primary focus right now?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. I have a question for you before we go too. But here's the thing. We came with the idea of bringing all of these benefits to the world, to bring all of these things. And that has been the focus of the whole life up until very recently, which was to give all these things, to provide all these things. And then having provided them, to just the world can accept them or not accept them as they want to do. But, for people who say, why can't we have peace? You can. It's affordable. These programs are not ridiculous compared to the cost that we're paying for the violence, for prisons, for hospitals, for military, for police, for lawyers, for all of this stuff. These programs are very reasonably priced. I mean, the PeaceMaker 10,000, which will cover 10,000 people or 10 square miles, costs $5,000. It's a one-time investment. But, that the potential reduction in traffic accidents and crime and all of that in months would cover that. What to say of what it would add up to over years and years and years. And it's actually 10,000 for this system, but they're on sale right now because what's going on in the world. And the 30,000, which covers 30 square miles, is tradition. It's effectively $30,000, but right now it's on sale for under 15. So these, and think about what you could do if you put them in hospitals, in prisons, in high stress areas, where we're having demonstrations and all of this. And it can have such a huge effect on the world. So these are being offered to the world. And I, on one hand, I'd like to say that I'd love to see them everywhere, but on another hand, that's not my job, if that makes sense. I'm a developer, an inventor. I'm not a marketing person. Another reason I'm not famous is, I'm the guy in the lab, and I'm not that person who can spread it out to the world. I'd love to find people who could take, any one of a number of our programs would make a very huge difference in certain aspects of society, like the pet program for rescue pets or some of these other things. And Barbara's focusing on that. And so there's some, so as far as getting things out in the world, that's been the job up until now. And then I got some divine guidance recently that said, I'm done with that. That what my focus right now is on receiving. And she said, I work with Divine Mother and what she's and others. And what the guidance came was that people are not taught how to receive in this world. We're taught how to do more, work harder, put in more hours. We're taught how to give, but people are embarrassed about receiving. People have very low self-esteem about what they're worth, about what should be given to them. And so the instruction has been to receive. We have some programs for that as well, also not yet released. I think most of them are not very, very powerful, but they're to help people receive what is their due just because they exist. No bear gets up and thinks, well, I shouldn't get any salmon today because I'm not worth it. They get up and I'm hungry and I'll go get the honey and I'll go eat the salmon or whatever fish in the stream. Angels don't, but we've been trained. Again, everything has its purpose. Okay. The technological advancements we've had since World War II have been due in a major part because of World War II. So we can look at World War II and go, oh my God, so many people died and how horrible it was. But the quality of the comfort of life has really gone through the roof because of the technological developments that came during that time of war that were then brought into, away from the military, brought into our homes, and that same level of productivity and inventiveness and mass production has dramatically changed the quality of our life and continues to do so, and has now done it for 80 years, 60, 80 years, some long period of time for a 3 or 4 year war, 5-year war that the U.S. was, it was a little longer in Europe. And so I think the question about what we're focusing. So here's what I wanted to say. We live in a world where we are presented with problems and we are taught to see problems solely for the purpose of somebody selling us something. We're brought up that way. Regardless of what happens in school, we walk down the street and there's billboards and there's advertising on TV and radio and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. Wherever we are, there's somebody who's trying to sell us something. Listerine exists as a mouthwash because it was invented for whatever it was invented for. They couldn't use it for, but they realized it worked great as a mouthwash, but nobody cared. So they invented the problem of bad breath first. They did a whole marketing thing on bad breath, and then from that, they were able to sell Listerine. If you look at a 30-second commercial, they present a problem, and then they solve the problem with whatever product you're going to sell, whether it's a sexy car or a floor cleaner. So we're taught to see the world as problems, and we're taught that we need to find solutions. We're not taught to receive. You don't see a commercial. You do these days. There are some church organizations that I'm absolutely in love with, which just talk about receive God's love, these kinds of things. And those are wonderful. Those are marvelous when we see that. but we're not good at receiving love. When our spouse or our children or our family comes to us, we're busy thinking about where we're inadequate while they're hugging us and telling us how wonderful we are. We're busy thinking that, oh, I didn't take out the trash, or I made this mistake when the kids were 5, or I haven't done. So we're not in the moment receiving. So the guidance that I got right now is that this should be my focus, and through that we'll be helping share that in the world that people can receive. The answers to every problem facing mankind right now already exist somewhere in the world, whether it's physical, raking the lakes, or whether it's quantum and unified field, whether it's somebody else's stuff, whether it's my stuff, whether it's some hut in Africa. There are so many amazing technologies that already exist. And if and when the news starts covering those, regardless of what else is going on in the world, instantaneously we will see the world in a different light. Yeah.
Well, I think that I like that concept of receiving, because I think you're right. And as you were talking, I was thinking, that's marketing. It's like solve the problem. And there's even the adage, that people don't buy prevention. They buy the cure, just like if you watch television, all the advertising for this pill and that pill and everything else that's going to make your world better. So let's remind everybody again where they can contact you. They can reach out to you at peaceandharmonyco.com.
peaceandharmonycompany.com. Yes, David is my email. And if you go to the website, peaceandharmonyco.com, I think there's supposed to be a contact us that works, but David is a great way to reach me. Okay. I want to ask you one question, which is, why don't you have a PeaceMaker system? Because you pointed out that you need it before the call, that you need to be running it, that you're not always running it. And one of the great things about the system is it's literally a laptop computer that we transformed into this peace broadcast system. It's the size of a laptop computer. You just put it up, you plug it in, you turn it on, and that's it. You're done. And it takes care of you and your family and your neighbors and your community. So, and it's ridiculously simple. You never have to think about it again. Look at it once in a while, make sure it's going fine, just because it's a new toy and it's fun. So why don't you have one?
I know that it's interesting because when I first got the Peace and Harmony download sample, I didn't even realize that at that moment in time that was a sample.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's why we now say sample everywhere, because exactly that. A lot of people got it and they thought that was the full thing, but and that's like the taste. But now that you know, are you going to get one?
You're putting me on the spot here.
I am, because
I think I should definitely look into it and see what I can do. And I know that you have this wonderful affiliate program that people can get involved with. You know what I really want to go find that you mentioned in your 700 different things. I'm really interested in whatever that was about getting out of your own way. Whatever you were talking about that. And I was going, I need that, because I think that's part of that might be why I don't have my PeaceMaker system, is because sometimes I get in my own way and stop myself from doing things that are good for me. And I think other people do the same thing.
Yeah, that's why we have it, because we create problems for ourselves. Again, it's part of the not receiving, is that we think we're not worth it, or we think, we don't believe certain things. Could the peace and harmony system, could the PeaceMaker system really be all that it's made out to be? Well, we have a guarantee that says you get to try it for 3 days. If you don't notice a difference in 3 days, you don't have to wait months, weeks. If you don't notice a significant difference within 3 days, and I should tell you that 90% of the people notice something within 3 minutes.
I know that when I did the Peace and Harmony download sample, I definitely noticed there was peace and harmony in my household.
Yeah.
And because I have, a lot of high-strung people who live in my household, and I did notice that there was definitely some calm in the household, and it definitely was, I noticed it because I had to have the interaction of having those people come into my presence to notice that there was that difference. But there definitely was a huge difference.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Tammy, but I am trying to do research, because from one level of thinking, these things should be flying off the shelves, and from another, they're not. And I'm looking because I have some dear friends like yourself who know what they can do, but they don't have them yet, and I want to find out what it is, why you don't. So that I can make adjustments. But I'm not really doing the marketing that these days. That's I'm looking for other people to be doing that. So when people are looking to contact me, one of the things, if they have an idea, if they look at the website and they get stoked about something and they feel they can help bring it out to the world, they should talk to me, because I really feel that's not my job. My job is to give the information. I mean, part of it is, but because I used to develop all the packaging and all the ads and the product itself and everything, but that was me I feel was also a stumbling block, because
right. It's part of getting in your own way when you're trying to create something and market it. It's like two different parts of the process.
Yeah.
And sometimes because you have that vision, it's also intimidating for other people who might have slightly different ideas about how to put it out to the world too. So I can see how that could be, but I think it's important that anyone listening to our conversation, that they understand that, hey, you're open to having input about helping get the peace and harmony, the peacemakers out into the world. And like I said, I can't give you a like 100% answer about why I don't have one, because like I said, I absolutely know that the sample of Peace and Harmony download, and I promote it all the time. I still will go find our interview that we did about Peace and Harmony download, and I'll share it and tell people, hey, use this.
Yeah.
Because I found it to be of such value. And I still share that interview because I thought that it really had a lot of value for people listening. So
thank you for that. Yes. So, and
I don't have a good answer.
And I appreciate that. And as a favor, maybe think about it, talk to some people, because I am completely open to the fact that we may be selling it wrong. As you said, I have an affiliate program. If somebody wants to do something with it, we're very open to what to do about it. Somebody pointed out to me recently, within the past couple of years, that she just said, you're an inventor, and that's kind of where your focus is. And I feel like, I grew up with my dad in marketing and radio and advertising. I kind of feel like if that was what if I was supposed to be doing that, getting back, I think these things would have been selling for, some of these things have been around for 10, 15 years and people love them, but they're not getting out there. So I guess I'm asking for help. If people are interested, I am very happy to work with people in whatever way.
Well,
we can make it work.
Off the top of my head, as you were talking, I have a few people who I want to introduce you to, and I'll do that off the air. But a couple people came to mind who would be good peace and harmony or peacemaker type spokespeople, just because that's what they're all about. So I'll send you that information. So before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to remind people about? And again, everyone, you can get the sample, the Peace and Harmony download sample at peaceandharmonydownload.com and experience the peace and harmony. And so that you, like David said, you get a taste of what it's like. And you definitely do feel it. It's moments that you feel peace and harmony. And if you play it in the background as you work and go about your business, you'll notice that you go into what I guess you would call into flow. And so you just kind of da-da-da-da-da. And sometimes I think we take some of these things for granted because you get used to it and then you don't use it. And then you're going, how come it doesn't feel as good as it did? And then you go, oh, because I'm not playing that in the background. And then you play it again and you go back into that nice peace and harmony flow. So I think sometimes it's like the habits. You just have to get yourself into the habit of allowing yourself to receive. So I think that message came across very clearly, that everybody needs to learn how to receive.
Yeah, I think people should, if as a final message, I want to say this. I suck at being a salesperson, but when you talk about how you have to get into the habit of playing the program, that's the advantage of the system. You just put it up and you don't have to do much. It automatically takes care of itself, which is cool. But if we're looking for a final message for people who are listening, I just have to say the world is perfect as it is right now. And if you're not seeing it that way, and you're looking, then start to look for it. Start small. Look at the top of your dresser. Look, and don't look for what bothers you. Look for what you like. Just, expect the best. Things are getting better and better all the time. I fully expect that we will have heaven-like on earth in the world because there are so many great well-wishers, especially in each subsequent generation. There are so many people, the younger generation, who already understand so much about the way things can be. So many social problems that won't exist by the time they come into power, if they're still there. I just think this is an amazing time in the world. I think it's amazing what is going through, and I think we're all getting to watch the sunrise. And for photographers, that's the time that you go and take pictures, because during the sunrise, more colors are available than during the rest of the time of day. And eventually everybody will get to enjoy the full sunshine. But for those of us who are there awake at the dawn, it's very exciting to watch the changes that are going on. If we have that lens that whatever we think we're seeing, it's moving in a positive direction, It's the bud being destroyed so the flower can bloom. That's really awesome. It's a really exciting time to be alive. It's really exciting time to participate from the level of joy and love and just well-wishing ourselves and others. That's it, just wishing ourselves well, wishing others well, and receiving, as you said. So much good is going on. I just appreciate it. I just appreciate it. It's a wonderful gift to the divine to appreciate his or her creation. So I just encourage people to do that.
Well, thank you so much. And everyone, I just want to remind everyone that there are, I think I have at least 3 additional conversations with David Adelson. So you want to be able to listen to this conversation. And then the beauty is that there's more. So you can hear some of our other conversations where we talk about all different kinds of things. So I always enjoy that so much. And just the beauty of the way that you describe where we are in the world today. Again, it just in that description, I think in itself brings about a lot of hope and peace and harmony and the ability to just kind of chill and see the world as unfolding in the perfectness that it is unfolding. And I really appreciate that so much, David. So thank you so much for.
You're so welcome. And you know how much I appreciate you as well. You're up there in the people I adore. So
well, thank you.
I always appreciate this.
Well, thank you so much.
Good. Thank you very much.
Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.